memory. With a heavy heart, he forsakes his time and seals himself away in hopes of a peaceful future. What happens when a girl who wishes to express herself finds the sealed body of the hero of the flame, unleashes him, and learns from him? What will the future hold for the world? Before we start, kindly like and subscribe to this channel, and look over the description box for the author of this amazing storyline. Welcome aboard. Chapter 1, World's End and Rebirth. Disappointment was felt by a blond man as he watched another battle ensue from his perch on top of a hill in Mizu no Kuni. His azure eyes watched on as shinobi pitted against shinobi, and blood painted the battlefield a deep crimson. Ever since the end of the Fourth Shinobi War, tensions had once again begun to rise between the shinobi villages of the elemental nations. It didn't even take more than 10 years before the tensions grew into skirmishes, and the skirmishes grew into full-blown battles. It was pathetic really, how easy it was to get caught up in another war so soon. Naruto Uzumaki sighed as he kept observing the battle between Kirigakure and Kumogakure. Ever since the loss of Ai, the Yondaime Reikage, and Karabi, the Hachibi Jinchuriki, Kumo had lost much of its military strength. They had noticed that Kiri had gotten noticeably stronger ever since the bloodline wielders returned to their old home in the mist. The Godaime Reikage was an unknown man who attained the seat through bribes and blackmail. He had decided that the need for restoring Kumo's military strength would be easily fulfilled by capturing and breeding any of the bloodline wielders they could capture. Kiri wasn't without loss though. Mei, the Godaime Mizukage, had fallen in combat. In fact, all of the previous Kage except for Gaara the Godaime Kazekage, and Tsunade the Godaime Hokage had lost their lives in the war as they faced off against the revived body of the Uchiha ancestor, Madara. Naruto took this time of silent observation to think back towards the Fourth War. The war itself was issued by an Uchiha by the name of Obito, a teammate of Kakashi Hatake and student of Minato Namikaze. Obito Uchiha had assumed the role of Madara and fooled everyone into believing that he was the Uchiha ancestor before he was revealed to be an impostor of the man. Others knew Obito as Tobi, the fool of the Akatsuki, who used his idiocy as a facade to hide his true role as puppet master of the dark organization. Obito's identity had finally been unveiled when he was in the middle of battle against Naruto, Kakashi, Metogai, and Karabi. Both Naruto and Karabi had the support of their respective Biju, Kurama the Kyuubi and Gyuki the Hachibi, during the battle and utilized their abilities to the fullest. Karabi fought in his full Biju form, while Naruto used what he dubbed his Kyuubi Sannin mode, and the six of them were able to give Obito a hard time. Unfortunately, the revived Madara appeared in the middle of the battle after killing 3 Kage and incapacitating the other 2 and began to fight alongside Obito. Madara went to fight the 2 Jinchuriki while Obito stayed to fight Kakashi and Guy. Naruto used every tactic, every jutsu, and every trick he had in his fight against Madara, but was only able to barely keep up with him. Even with Karabi assisting him, it was a long and bitter fight. Madara had used his ultimate Manjikyu Sharingan, Kaleidoscope Mirror Wheel Eye Technique Susanoo, Tempestuous God of Valor, to fight both Jinchuriki defensively and offensively at the same time. It was only by sheer dumb luck that Naruto was able to get the drop on the Uchiha. While Karabi distracted him with a Biju Dama, Tailed Beast Bullet, Naruto had pulled out a special seal tag provided by the Fuinjutsu department of the Shinobi Alliance. The tag was meant to cut the connection between Kabuto and the people revived by the Edo Tensei, Impure Resurrection technique. Kurama warned Naruto that the connection between Kabuto and Madara was no longer there, and that he would have to pump the fox's Yuki, demonic energy, into the seal in order to give it a higher chance to work. As soon as Madara was forced out of his Susanoo by the Biju Dama, Naruto poured all of his chakra into his speed to appear in front of the Uchiha in a yellow flash, similar to how his father did in the past. He then slapped the seal tag on the undead Uchiha's torso, pumped as much of Kurama's Yuki into it as he could, and activated the Tamashi no Miso Fuien, Burial of the Soul Seal, in hopes of finally putting Madara to rest for good. At first Madara believed that the seal would fail, however, when he felt his soul leaving the body it had currently inhabited, he realized that the Yuki was cutting off his chakra used to resist the seal by corroding his chakra coils. Before succumbing to his fate, Madara congratulated the blonde before using the remainder of his strength to have his Susanoo fire and arrow covered in the black flames of Amaterasu, illuminating heaven at Karabi. The unexpected attack struck the rapping Jinchuriki in his heart, while in his full Bijou form, and began to engulf him in its undying black flames. Naruto watched on in horror as the man he both respected and befriended slowly burned to death by the dark flames. How does it feel, Jinchuriki, to win this fight at the cost of another of your kind? This victory may be yours, but it will always be remembered as a hollow victory for you, Madara taunted before succumbing to the Tamashii no Miso Fusion. The rest of the war was nothing but a blur for Naruto, as the only thing he truly remembered after that fight was allowing Kurama to take full control of his body. After that, he remembered nothing else but rage for the loss of a dear friend. Kurama had explained that while he was in control, he was able to utilize all of his Bijou abilities and some that Naruto was unable to handle at the time. The war had ended when Kurama/Naruto fired what Kurama had called the Zettai no Bijou Dama, absolute tail beast bullet, at Obito, which Kakashi aided by using the remainder of his chakra to engulf it in a Kamui, authority of the gods, while Obito tried to use his own to make his body intangible. The result was Obito's body and the Geto Mazo, demonic statue of the outer path, being engulfed and obliterated by the technique which started the chain of events leading to the end of the war. With their leader dead, the Zetsu clones didn't know what to do, and were overwhelmed by the Shinobi Alliance. However, Kakashi had lost his life performing his final Kamui, and Konoha mourned the loss of a great shinobi, as well as the many other shinobi that they had lost. Those included were Rock Lee, Shino Aburame, and Jinma Shiranui. It was still unknown what happened to Sasuke, the reborn Orochimaru, and Team Taka after the end of the war. They had laid low over the years and no one had even heard rumors of their whereabouts. It surprised everyone, especially Naruto's other teammate Sakura Hirono, that Naruto did not really care about Sasuke's disappearance, but he paid their surprise no mind. He had stopped planning to bring the Uchiha back during the war and figured that as long as Sasuke didn't choose to harm any of his precious people, then he wouldn't worry about the vengeful Uchiha. After the battle, Naruto had scoured the many battlefields for any survivors, and was pleased to see that his friend Anko had not only survived, but had her Juon cursed seal removed. He was surprised at this discovery, as was Anko, but the woman was far too elated to care about details. Anko was finally free of her ex-mentor's influence, and had surprised everyone by kissing Naruto in her moment of sheer joy. The reason why it was Naruto was because he was the one who had found her unconscious body, and brought her back to Konohagakure. Of course, the kiss was just a spur-of-the-moment action, and the two remained nothing more than very close friends. Naruto shook out of his reminiscing before he activated his Kyuubi Sannin mode. Another day, another issue to settle. He sighed. Indeed, it is, Kit, agreed the fox inside the blonde's seal as its host entered the fray. To the participants of the skirmish, Naruto was nothing more than an orange flicker as he took down battling shinobi left and right. To a spectator, it was like watching a bright orange flame move through the battle while countless shinobi were knocked aside. It was truly a sight to behold. As self-appointed peacekeeper of the elemental nations, Naruto made it his duty to find peaceful ways to end disputes between the hidden villages. Of course, the job was far from easy, and most of the time Naruto had to end the disputes forcefully, meaning that he would enter a battle and take down both sides. He avoided killing them and settled for incapacitating. However, his message to end the fighting was still given to both sides. Naruto knew that the idea of peace was becoming an empty dream at this point and decided that after this dispute, he would retire as a shinobi, go into a self-imposed exile. After all, one could only take so much stress before finally deciding that enough was enough. Plus, Naruto had one final plan in mind for the elemental nations. Hokage's office, 1 week later. Tsunade was busy with her never-ending battle against paperwork. Over the years, she still did not discover the secret to defeating it, and it pissed her off tremendously. She was interrupted by a knock on her door, and she inwardly thanked Kami for the distraction. Once she cleared the knocker to come in, the door opened to reveal Naruto. Naruto had changed over the years, and the changes were seen positively in the eyes of the villagers. He wore a pair of black ANBU-style boots, maroon cargo pants, a black karate GI shirt with the sleeves torn off, had bandages covering from his fingers to his elbows, and his old Gama Senin cloak. He also wore a straw hat with small bells like the Akatsuki used to wear, and constantly had a senbon in his mouth like the Jonin Genma had. Because of the hat, his high-8 headband was wrapped around his left bicep, which allowed his wild blonde hair to slightly cover his eyes. His hair was a blend of his father's and Jiraiya's, having his father's bangs and his godfather's ponytail. Many wondered why Naruto chose this as his attire, and the reason was so that he could never forget the ordeals that he went through or the precious people that he lost. "Naruto, it's good to see you, Gaki. What do you need from me?" questioned the blonde Kage. He still looks so young compared to everyone else, she thought to herself. True to her observation, Naruto appeared to have only aged by about 1 year. He assumed that Kyuubi was responsible since he still felt healthy, if not healthier. When brought to her attention years back, she was surprised to see that his body had seemed to stop aging due to the fox's Yuki. It wasn't a total stop though, just a seriously slowed aging process. If she had to guess, Naruto would appear to age 1 year for every 10 years that passed naturally. Naruto sighed before stating, "Bah-chan, I'm ready to retire as a shinobi of Konoha." Tsunade was shocked at his request. "Why would you want to do that? I mean, wasn't it your dream to become Hokage of the Leaf one day? You can't become Hokage if you're retired, Naruto." Naruto merely gave her a blank stare at her outburst. "I've given up on that dream years ago, Bah-chan. I let dozens of people rush to their deaths just for my sake, and they'll continue to do so if I become Hokage. I don't want their deaths weighing on my conscience, so I gave up that dream. What I want to do now is explore Kaasan's old home, the ruins of Uzushio-gakure. I can easily allow you to do that, and you can still remain a shinobi." She countered in hopes that he'd change his mind. She couldn't deny that his reasons for abandoning his dream were completely reasonable, but she refused to see him give up being a shinobi, the one thing that he enjoyed doing the most. "I'm not just gonna visit Yuzu, Bah-chan, I'm gonna restore it." He saw the surprise on her face and elaborated. "I want to go back to my roots as an Uzumaki, and see if there is anything worth scavenging. After that, I plan to slowly rebuild Yuzu and restore its old prestige as a shinobi nation. However, I can't do that as a Konoha shinobi, so I've decided to retire. Besides, all of the constant arguments and disagreements between the other nations have really worn me out, and I can't handle it for much longer. If this keeps up, I might lose my mind and snap. Please Bah-chan, just let me retire and go home," he pleaded. Tsunade was depressed that he called a place he had never seen his home besides Konoha, and was torn at her godson's request. He was well overdue for a visit to Yuzu, and she had planned on taking him there, but she was constantly busy with her duties as Kage of the Leaf. Not only that, but the war had made her forget all about taking him there, and him asking to retire had brought back that old plan to her thoughts. She also knew of his duties as peacekeeper, and how much of a toll they had taken on him over the years. She saw the slight bags under his eyes from his stress, and knew that he needed a rest. Perhaps retirement was the best alternative for her godson. She sighed sadly before she stated, "All right, Naruto, I'll give you the retirement forms as well as clearance papers to leave Konoha. No one will be able to stop you from leaving." "But Naruto, is this really what you want? What about the rest of the Rookie 11? I'm sure they'll miss you if you go." Naruto smiled sadly at that comment. "They all have their own lives and futures to deal with, Bah-chan. They all have families to care for, and I can't place myself back into their lives after not even seeing them for at least 2 years. And don't say it hasn't been that long, because you know it has," he asserted when he noticed that she was about to interrupt. "The point is that they don't need me in their lives anymore, and the village doesn't need me either."